Hey there, Game Dev. So Tony Chan here. Hope you're having a great day. For this episode, I interview Jay Powell, founder of the Powell Group. He specializes in business development, licensing, and marketing with over 20 years of experience. Here are 3 key points you're going to learn on this episode. First, why you need to constantly follow up with important people. So if you got a publisher or journalist you want to get attention of, you got to hit them up 3 or more times until they respond and say no. So definitely follow up is important. Jay also talked about how he got robo-dubbed while working with another developer, which caused issue with their client who expected a specific product. But like I said earlier, he got robo-dubbed and the product did not come out as it was meant to. We also dive deep into disengaging, where we just need to take breaks from the world if we get too overwhelmed. Real quick, so I recently moved closer to work, which is only 3 minutes away, which is awesome. But now I kind of don't have my own room. So you might hear my kid cry like once or twice during the interview. So I apologize for that. So thanks again to Jay for that awesome interview, and I hope you enjoy. All right, Jay, go ahead and give us a bit about your personal life and how you got started in the game industry.
I got started in college, actually. I was in school at Chapel Hill, and I was a RA for a dorm, which is fantastic for your parents because they give you free room and board. But it's not so fantastic for you because you don't get paid. And so, I needed some spare money, and I'm sitting at the front desk, being professional one morning, and there was an ad in the student paper for this little company, and they said, we're looking for people who play games to come in and play some games and tell us what you think. Send us a fax, because, way back then they had these things called fax machines, and of the games that you're playing. And I sent like a 2-page fax to them with all these games I had played, which I know now in retrospect was so overkill. It was ridiculous. But, I was so excited. It was like, oh my God, somebody's going to pay me to play games. And so, I go down and it's a agency, the same way. And everyone knows what agencies are for games now. But, 20 years ago, nobody knew. It was a tough sell a lot of times. But it was, 2 guys that would come out of, Duke University and their business school, and they were brilliant on the business side, but they weren't gamers. So, when it came to doing all the things with selling the games and doing the distribution networks and setting up contracts and negotiating and all that stuff, they had that down pat. Their weak point that they realized was they couldn't, sit down and play a game and say this one's worth doing and this one's not. So they started this program where, college kids would come in and play games and we'd fill out a little form and that would be it. And that they'd take that and decide whether or not they were going to work with the client. And so over the course of, a few months, I started giving some suggestions, like maybe you should look at doing this on the questionnaires and just feedback here and there. And they're like, hey, that sounds awesome. You want to be an intern and now you can be in charge of this. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. So, for pretty much my entire senior year, I was interning with this company. And then when I graduated, they offered me a full-time position. And so I was the third person into, the agency was called Octagon Entertainment. And, that's literally how I started. I had no business experience. I took one econ class in college. I'm pretty sure I got a C in it. And the only thing I remember is, supply and demand. One goes up, the other goes down. That was the extent of my business expertise. And, everything that I've learned in the industry, I've learned on the job, from them, from other people, and from, doing it on my own for the last 10 years, and, the best teacher is always mistakes. And so, but, that's it. I joke when people ask, like, how'd you get in the industry? I was like, I needed beer money. That was basically it. And so here we are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's kick it off with this business development, because we know it's important, but of course, game developers or indie developers, new game developers, we're not familiar with it too much. So we're just focusing on, making our game. So what is something we probably don't know about in business development that we should?
There's probably a lot of things, honestly. The biggest thing is tracking your conversations and always following up with people. That seems to be the thing that always catches people. And you have to remember, it's awesome that you got this fantastic game that you want to make and this wonderful story that you want to tell. there's nothing wrong with that. That's the passion that keeps the industry alive. But, I see so many indies and they're like hating on the business side. Like, I don't want to do that. And that's just stupid and time consuming and it's not going to do anything. You have to remember at the end of the day, you're not going to have the opportunity to do the things that you love if you don't make a, living from it. And, unless you want to continue working the job that you don't like in order to do the thing that you do like, you need to get to that point where you can do that thing that you do like all the time. But the biggest thing that I see, time in and time out is, companies talking to a publisher, or they're going and talking to streamers about, streaming their game, and they never follow up. It's just like, I'm going to send an email out, and if somebody replies, that's fine. And if they don't, then, maybe they weren't interested or whatever, I'll just go on. And over the course of my career, I guarantee you, if I sat down and ran through all the deals that I've done, I would find more of them happen because of a follow-up that I did than the, initial email or the initial phone call, that went out. And so, the biggest piece of advice, not necessarily the most important probably, but the one that I see most devs stumble on is constantly following up with people. And you can't just do it once or twice. If you meet somebody at a trade show, especially if it's a publisher, there's a lot of developers out there that are always looking for, contract work and, work for hire gigs and things like that. That's not something that you can do once a year at GDC. You have to constantly, every 3 months, minimum, be checking in, send a quick email, say, hey, look, this is what we've been working on. You got anything coming up? And, maintaining those relationships, because, if your whole business development strategy is a bunch of one-off emails, it's not going to work.
Yeah. And I think people underestimate the follow-up. Like, it is so crucial because unless they say no, we're not interested or we're too busy, sometimes email, people pass it up either because they just skim through their emails, they think it's a spam, or they just never saw it because, they had a lot of other emails coming in. Like, there could be a lot of reasons why they never responded in the first place, or they just never saw it. So doing that follow-up email to ensure like they actually read it, and if they say no, then that's when you stop following up. So you're saying to follow up every 3 months or so, correct?
I mean, depending on what you need. All right. So if, and we were talking about this on the show today, there's always a fine line to walk between following up and bugging the shit out of somebody. There is a fine line there. If you're sending something, if you send your game to a publisher or to a streamer or to whoever it is, and you send the email on Monday, and then Tuesday you're like, hey, did you look at this? And then Wednesday it's like, hey, I haven't heard from you. That's going to get you blacklisted in a heartbeat. If it's something timely like that, like you're following up on an actual opportunity, then you need to be checking in like once a week, until you either are sure that you're not going to hear back ever, or they say no. If it's ongoing relationship, I categorize the relationships that we have in the industry and the emails and the different people that we work with into basically 3 categories. There's the ones that I follow up with every month, the ones I follow up with every 2 months, and the ones I follow up with every 3 months. I try, and I say try, not to, not check in with somebody more than every 3 months. Sometimes things fall through the cracks and, you get busy and all that kind of good stuff. But, it's got to be a situation where you're engaging that person. You're not just like trying to push some, sales item on them, every 3 months. It's a lot of, hey, look, I saw this and I thought of you, or I saw your game just launched. Congratulations. Something to stay front of mind that's not annoying. But yeah, I mean, I would not recommend waiting more than 3 months to check in with some of the folks that you're dealing with, because hell, you don't know, they could be gone. I mean, look at this industry. People move jobs all the time. Exactly. And so, you may find out that person that you were dealing with is no longer there, and you may need to find somebody else. And so that champion of your game who was going into the acquisition meeting, or who was, deciding which shows get featured on Twitch that week, they're gone. And so you got to hurry and get started on, from the ground floor with somebody else.
Let me ask you this. The email subject line, how important is that? Is there like specific keywords we should be using to catch whoever we're trying to reach attention?
I wouldn't. So one is very important because, I mean, that's easily, we were talking about reasons why people might not have responded. If you had some drab subject line and, you sent it last thing Friday, first thing Monday morning, and, the person comes in, they're looking at 50 emails and you just have a generic line in there. Yeah. That's going to get overlooked, frequently. I wouldn't say there's a magic sauce of, keywords that need to be in there. I like to include the person's name, in it. So it doesn't look like a spam email. It is somewhat personalized. And you can go online, and I don't know all the stats, off the top of my head, but there are criteria you need to think about in terms of the number of characters in a subject line so that it looks right on a mobile phone when people look at it. It's not, everybody's not just like looking at their, at their computer all the time. You've got to take mobile email into account. And there's also, words that you shouldn't use simply because it may get you triggered into a spam page. Like free is sometimes, will kick you. And I know there's much better resources than me online about this, but, it's something that you need to be at least somewhat aware of if you're the one handling the biz dev at your company, is how to write subject lines that, engage the user and they don't just overlook it and it doesn't fall into the blandness of everything else. And, and then when they open that email, the second half of this is don't send emails that are like 5-page term papers or something. Keep it brief. That's what's going to get you more engagement anyway. No one wants to sit there and initiate a conversation with you if they're exhausted after they read your email. It's, hey, Tony, I've got this new game. It's like, Command and Conquer meets Doom with a little bit of Stardew Valley in it. We're looking for a publisher. We need this amount of money. Is this something you might be interested in? That's what you need to get started. Put a screenshot in there, maybe a video if you have it, and a link to, well, we're not going to say early access because that's a double-edged sword, but, catch them and engage them with something short and brief and quick. And then, you can expand on it, where they go.
I like that. Short and sweet. Awesome. Overall, what are key principles to ensure the success of a business development?
Attention to detail, making sure things don't fall through the cracks. And that goes along with the follow-up part. That goes along with staying on top of the industry. A lot of what we do is basically research. We look at, new companies that are started either from developers or publishers. When we go to trade shows, we come home with big old, stacks of, these guides to, development publisher companies around the world. And so it's an ongoing effort here at my company to constantly make sure our contacts are up to date and the people that we're talking to at these developers are still there. And the fact that the developer or the publisher is still there, is a big part of it. But, it's constantly attention to detail. And that's where, writing it down on a legal pad or a note beside your desk isn't going to do it. You actually need some of these tools like a CRM solution or at least a spreadsheet, to keep track of this stuff and to know who you're talking to and when you're talking to, that sort of stuff. That's always where I see the biggest problems is, opportunities simply falling through the cracks. And, if you're a developer and you're trying to find a streamer for your game, a publisher for your game, somebody to help you do the PR, you're trying to get a review on a website, whatever you're trying to do, there's another 1,000 developers out there trying to do the very same thing at the very same time. And, 99 times out of 100, that publisher or streamer or website or, whoever you're trying to talk to isn't going to sit around and wait for you to figure out what you wanted to do. If somebody else has something, more timely, they're going to go with that or you're going to miss out. So, it's without a doubt, attention to detail.
Yes, get on the game dev. Biz dev is definitely important. So now let's get to know more about you and your journey in the industry. What was that worst moment of your career? That one moment that's still vivid in your mind? Be very detailed and tell us that personal story.
So I hate to say that there's like a worst moment because 20 years was a lot of bad ones. But, it's, there are definitely things over the years that I can say, constantly rehash, and I never forget. The first one was, I had probably been in the industry for 8-9 years when this happened. We got rope-a-doped basically by a developer, and it was something that we knew better. I knew better than to fall for this. At the time we had transitioned the agency into a casual publisher, and I was, the owners were very busy trying to raise, investment money. And unfortunately that meant a lot of their work fell down to me. And so I was doing acquisitions for new games for us to publish. I was building our digital distribution network, which was at the time massive because it was right when the hidden object games were taking over. So you had Big Fish and Reel and, all of these just casual sites that were selling games. And, that was an undertaking. I was at the same time producing a game or two and overseeing two producers as an executive producer. I was doing literally 4 jobs at once. We had a client who had come to us and we were overseeing the development of a game for them. And somewhere along the line, I had a producer that we had brought on to take some of that load off of me. And so, the whole point of that person being there is that I didn't have to, watch every little step that was going on with this game. And so I send the publisher a note and I said, I just want to let you know, this is the, Gold Master candidate. Let me know what you think. And I get an email back and he's like, Jay, how can this possibly be the Gold Master candidate? There's not any multiplayer in it. And I went, wait, what? Somewhere along the line, our producer had said, rubber stamped off on something and told the developer they didn't have to do multiplayer, despite the fact that that was very clear whole part of the game design. And, that was tough for me for the first time in, nearly a decade of making games, look at this, client of ours and say, I know we told you you would have multiplayer in this game, but it's simply not there and it's not going to happen. And, it's our fault. We let it slip. That is, one of the things that has really stuck with us, and I say we got rope-a-doped on it because part of the issue that we found out later is we chose this developer based on, a series of work that they had done. And we wisely assumed that the same people that did that work would be doing this work, and it wasn't the case. They basically sold us on team A and then gave us team D.
Oh, wow.
And, that happens. That happens all the time, and we knew that happens all the time. And, it slipped by me. It's just one of those that I didn't have my eye on it and I didn't worry about it. And I had other things going on. And that was a tough phone call to make, to say, I know we promised you XYZ feature, and it's not like I'm saying it's going to be 2 weeks late. I'm saying it's not going to happen. It's not going to be in there. That was tough. The first time I had to do layoffs, that was horrible. Not a lot to go into detail on that one. It's like, when you don't have enough money to pay your people, and that's at the end of the day, it's like, the quarterback of the football team, it's on you. If a company's going sideways, it's not, you can't sit down there and look at the middle manager. The fish stinks at the head, that's the way I look at my company. If we succeed, that's awesome. But if something goes wrong, at the end of the day, that's on me. And, that was a tough time. But Tony, I can give you a whole interview of, things that I've seen go sideways and I've had bad experiences with over the last 2 decades. But those are the two biggest, that in terms of, just worst days ever.
So yeah, you work with another company to help develop this game. And of course, some indie developers, they're probably doing the same thing. What can you tell them to ensure that everyone has, the same vision? But on your case, they rope-a-dope you. They switched it to a team B, which is definitely messed up. What would you have done differently if you were in that position again?
I would have done what I knew to do in the first place, and I didn't do. You from a publisher standpoint, and a lot of developers don't like this, and rightfully so, but it's one of those things that you have to get that relationship off to a good start from the beginning. Now and then, because like I said, that would slip through the cracks on me. We always, if we're commissioning work to be done, we require the names of the leads, not everybody on the team. And I'm not going to sit down and say, yeah, you need to list out every individual that's working on the game and put them in the contract. But we have a clause in the contract that says, like, here's your producer, here's your designer, here's your lead engineer, lead artist. Depending on how big the team is, the leads are listed in the agreement. And if something is to go, if one of those people is to not be working on the game, either because they left or because of something else, it's a decision. And, this depends on the contract, but it's a point where everybody takes a step back and goes, okay, how are we going to replace this person? Is it going to be somebody, is it a point where everybody wants to walk away? There's a lot of different avenues that you can take there, but, you always want to make sure who the main people are, and you can even, and it works both ways. I mean, if you get sold on working with a publisher and part of your due diligence into that publisher is this is the person that's going to be, your producer and he or she's the one that's talking with you through the whole thing. And you're excited about working with them and their past track record is something that syncs up really well with the game that you're making. You want to have that same protection. If my producer, that I'm working with leaves, I want to be able to take a step back and say, all right, now what? What do we do? The same way that publisher's going to want to do it if your lead designer goes and gets a job at, Epic or something like that. It needs to be in there. But, when you're starting dealing with contract negotiation, there's so many balls in the air at any given time. You're not always going to get it. I mean, that's the bottom line. As a developer coming out, if this is your first game, if you don't have a big track record in the industry, sometimes you got to take the deal you get. It sucks, and you're not going to get all the, stuff in the contract that you want to get in there. But, it is what it is. But, when you can, get some things in there that protect you, these are the things that you should look for. And, quite frankly, you cannot ever be afraid to walk away from a deal, because that's another, one of the tenets that we go by is, relationships don't get better. If you have if you're a developer and you're dealing with a publisher, or, you've got a contractor, or, anybody that you're in, working towards a relationship with, and it's a rocky, combative, just unfun road, even at the negotiation stage, if that person or company isn't going to turn around and be all like unicorns and fairies and sunshine, once the contract is signed, it's not going to happen. If they're difficult to deal with at day one, they're going to be difficult to deal with at day 90.
Yeah.
And so you can't be, afraid of walking away from a deal. That just has to be in the back of your mind. We track 550 some publishers around the world. There are other fish in the sea. It's not like it was 15 years ago when, if you weren't going to deal with THQ, Ubi, EA, Activision, or, one of the other, big companies that were around then you were going to be, in deep trouble. 550 some publishers now. And are out there. They're not all going to fund a $6 million project. Some of them aren't going to fund a $60,000 project, but they all have their benefits and their expertise. And, depending on what you want, it's going to dictate how many of those are good fits for you. But don't go into a deal that you're not comfortable going into, because it ain't going to get better.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. I would never ever work with someone that I just don't enjoy being around with, or we just don't work well together, even though that person might have the necessary skills, to accomplish what I need. If we don't get along, it's not going to happen. And it's because it's going to be a negative atmosphere. It's not going to be like good for the team morale. It's just not worth it to deal with in the end.
Exactly.
So yeah, definitely work with people that have a good feeling with, or could work well with.
And you have to enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, it's going to show.
Another thing I want to talk about on your journey is, what do you think was like the biggest waste of time you've done in your career, and what would you have replaced that time with?
That was probably the end of that phase I was telling you about with the developer, when I was doing 4 jobs, basically. It got to a point where, this was before the days of telecommuting. If we wanted to telecommute, we had got dial into like a VPN, and not nearly as decent as the VPNs out there now. It just wasn't something that was easily, feasible. I wasn't sleeping. I would wake up at 3 a.m. and know I wasn't going back to sleep. So I just get in the car and go into work. I got to the point where I had ulcers and I was throwing up blood at 4 a.m. And it was like, you know what? This is probably not worth it. And, I hate saying it was a waste of time, because it wasn't pleasant and it was very tough. But at the same time, you learn lessons, and, it made me where I am now. So it was a very unpleasant situation. And yes, it went on for months and probably years, but there are things I could have, do I wish I had started my first company sooner? Probably. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, but if it hadn't gotten as bad as it did, would I have been as resilient to stick with, doing this on my own? My first company, when I left there, wasn't on my own. I had 2 partners, and we did a production company for 3 or 4 years. But, if I didn't have that experience that was horrible, would I have been as motivated to push it on my own, or would I have, left and just found another job for somebody else? The best thing I think I have ever done in this industry was having the grit and the nerve to go out and say, I can do this on my own. I don't need to work for somebody. I can work for me, and, I can take the reins and be responsible for what I'm doing. And I always just have to wonder, it's like, would I have been as damned and determined to do that had I not gone through some of the stuff that I went through that was extremely unpleasant?
You got to use those failures or those unpleasant moments as a way to strengthen your resolve. I don't know the word for it, but to basically make you stronger instead of, making it demotivate you or stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, they've written 1,000 songs about it, about every turn in the road and every whatever, and that's what it is. I look back and, I say, okay, would I be where I am now? I mean, would I have the family that I have now if I had done something else? If I might have moved to some other country and never met my wife, and I wouldn't have this awesome, 6-year-old, I hesitate to call it a waste of time, but it was definitely a horrible experience I don't want to go through again. And, it led me to where I am now. And, and that's awesome. I love where I am now. So, but, at the end of the day, it all ties back to, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, don't do it. And, I hear people all the time, it's like, oh, but I can't. It's like, no, you can. You don't want to, but you can. That's the thing. It's like everybody, it's the old saying, everybody has a price. It's like, if you're saying you're in it, if I'm going back 12 years and talking to myself about this, and, I'm sitting there going, I know there's too much on me. I know I need help, doing this stuff, and I'm not getting it. And it's not a healthy work environment, and I'm miserable and everything else, but I have to stick with it. I'm going, no, you don't. You have to, you feel like you have to, and there may be aspects of it that you do have to, maybe your insurance is paid through the company, and that is a factor. But the reality is, if you do something and you get, you work some time in the evening and you get something else going on, your side hustle, and, all of a sudden you're making a little more money and you can afford your own insurance anymore. Well, now you don't have to have that job. There's always a tipping point. Everybody's got that price. And, I just grin when people say, I can't do it. It's like, no, you can. There's nothing that's preventing you from doing it. I can't win the NBA dunk contest, that's physics. That's no, that's not, but, can you learn to code in the evenings? Can you, learn better skills in marketing? Can you learn better practices to grow your company? Yes, you can. Whether or not you want to put the time and the extra effort into it and trade off other things in your life, that's the question.
Well, it comes down to it's hard work. It's definitely hard work. You got to put in the time. You can't like slack off. If you got a goal, you got to put your heart and soul into it.
And that's one of the things that you learn when you work for yourself and you don't work in an office environment is how much time during that 8-9 hour day that you're putting in is not utilized to the best of your ability, and can you do what needs to be done in a shorter amount of time to allow you to do things you want to do, or, learn the things you want to learn, and that sort of stuff. That was the biggest jolt to me when I started, consulting is, I'd go in and be talking to companies, even local companies where I was like actually going on site to work with them. And they're like, all right, we're going to pay you for 30 hours a week. And here's the list of things that we need you to do during that week. And I would look at it and go, well, I can get that done in about 6 hours. But okay, you're going to pay me for 30. We're good to go. It's, it's amazing, like, when you're not having meetings for meeting's sake and, you don't have people coming by your cubicle in your office and like, chatting to you and disrupting that train of thought. And I see these cartoons online all the time where it's like developers where they're like head down and they're coding and they're on a roll. And then somebody comes by and goes, hey, did you see that Broncos game? And it's like everything just goes to hell, and then they have to get back in that mode. That's a real thing. That happens, with everybody. It's not just coding. I have times in my day when I have to like turn off, notifications and put Skype on do not disturb and things like that because you've got to concentrate and get it done. And when you're doing consulting and when you're on your own and at the end of the day whether you succeed or fail is on you, it's amazing what you can get done in the amount of time that is significantly less than you used to be able to get it done, which opens up all that time for learning new stuff.
Oh man, yeah, I can't imagine having that freedom of just working for yourself and utilizing that time the way you want it to. That's just awesome. But let's go ahead. Yeah, let's take this on a more positive note to learn more of how you got that experience and what you used to get better. Like, what was that one of the best investment you've ever made? It could be investment of money, time, or energy. Like, what was that great investment that just pushed you to the next level?
That first company, it didn't work. It worked for 3 years, but none of us got rich. I used to do a ton of savings. And of the 3 partners, I'm the only one that's still in the game industry. But that had to be it, because I was, I had spent 10 years working for somebody and you don't really worry about everything because your next paycheck's on the way. And you obviously worry to an extent that you're doing your job, but it's not like when you're a consultant and it's like, okay, so we got 3 clients last month and we're getting paid. And next month we have no clients. So we're not getting paid next month. And you just kind of have to, deal with that. But that investment in learning, and there's no other way to explain it than, you're standing on a dock, in the middle of a lake, and you just kind of have to take that first step and fall over in the water. You can't do it when you still got one foot on the shore. You're never going to give it your all. And as long as you've got, something you're holding on to going, well, if it doesn't work, I can go back to doing this. It's, like Cortez or whichever, Spanish conqueror, got to the new world and then burnt his ships. That man was invested. At that point, there's no going back. You can't. You don't have another option. You have to force yourself to succeed. Without a doubt, sitting down and having the nerve and the confidence in myself, which, it's easy for me to look back now and say, oh, yeah, I was really confident. I wasn't. This was, when you walk out of something and, I made really, really good money when I was in my early 20s. And, all of a sudden it's like, where's all that money going now? I don't have all that money coming in anymore. And you have to force yourself to do it. That's without a doubt the best investment, I've ever made. It's just going and teaching yourself that you can do it. And the key part of that I'm not going to consider an investment because she would strangle me is my wife for being absolutely so supportive and not freaking out when I came home and went, so I quit my job today and I'm going to make my own company. I know a lot of people who would have just lost it at that point, but she has been, for 10 years, and we've been married longer than that, but, for the 10 years that, I haven't had a quote unquote steady paycheck, real job, she's always been there. She's like, yeah, we got this. I know you can do it. We'll skimp a little here and, we'll do a little over here. And so, she's fantastic and you have to have that support structure because you're going to have days where it's like, I suck. There's no way I can do this. I'm a failure. I'm just going to go eat worms. You're going to have those days and you've got to have, that support structure, a wife, a friend, whatever it may be, somebody that looks at you and goes, you don't suck as bad as you think you do. I mean, there's plenty of parts about you that suck, but it's not the parts that you're talking about. You can do this, and that's key. But, being able to, force myself to go and say, I can do this, I can learn how to do this and go at it on my own is that's without a doubt the best investment I've ever made.
You reached that point, that low point. Like, did you do anything specific to, keep pushing forward? Like, was there like a new habit but for yourself, did you do anything specific that just kept you going?
There were habits. I wouldn't say they were good, but I always had to, you've got to be able to get away from everything. And, and that was it. And back then, I don't know, I remember buying a camera because, I was going to do wildlife photography on the weekend. I mean, that's always one of the things that, I love being outdoors. I hunt. I don't trophy hunt. We eat what we get, type thing. But the funny thing about when I go hunting is I don't care if I come home with anything or not. It's the ability to completely disengage, and it's why we moved up to the mountains, so if I'm having a horrible day, I can take the dog and we can go for a walk and we can go, walk through the woods and, just be away from it all and get some perspective and sit down and relax. I would say, back then, I don't remember, it was just like everything was so chaotic and bad. I do remember I bought that camera because I'm like, maybe if I got out more and like, when I'm not, going out there to quote unquote hunt, if I can get out there and, take pictures and, do that, it'll help. And I don't remember if I ever did. My wife uses that camera now. She's an awesome photographer, but, I couldn't tell you what half the settings on that thing do at this point. But, it's always been, that ability to disengage. And I can give you a more recent example. We went on, for 19 of my 20 years, I can say now, I was that guy who I was always try to be accessible to clients and stuff like that. If it was 9:00 at night, my phone dinged, there was an email. I didn't always return them right then, but I was always going to acknowledge it and see what was going on. And I'll see, 6-8 months ago, we went on vacation and we were going on a cruise. So it's not like we had, any cell coverage anyway. And I turned the notifications off on my phone, Twitter, email, everything, turned them off. And I have not turned them back on in 6 or 8 months now. And that has been one of the best things I have ever done, since I started these companies. You have to draw that line. You have to say, this is my time. This is, the time I'm going to spend with my family. This is the time I'm going to unwind. This is the time I'm going to do something that I enjoy. Whatever it is that's not work, you have to be able to have that. And you learn that there's nothing that's going to happen in 12 hours that's going to completely and utterly destroy, anything, basically. And so, as much as I've learned over the years and all this stuff, going back to last September, when I decided I was going to turn the email notifications and the Twitter notifications off on my phone, that has been a huge sanity break.
Yeah, I feel like the obsession with the phones and the notification, it has overtaken many people's attention, I guess, instead of like focusing on other stuff. And yeah, disengaging, taking those breaks that you need, especially away from work or from the business. It's so important to just refresh your mind on something else. Yeah.
And it's going back to kids like we were talking about. You can't send the message to your kid that, they're important to you. They're sitting there trying to talk to you and you're sitting there staring at your phone and answering emails and playing on Twitter and that kind of stuff. I'm not perfect about it. There's a lot of things, especially on the parenting side, that I could do better than I do. But, for a complete sanity break and being able to kind of like wipe that slate at the end of the day and, come into it the next morning and deal with it then, that's been one of the biggest things. And it's been one of the biggest quality of life changes that, quite frankly, I didn't expect that I'd say I've seen in the last year.
Isn't there a word like when you disengage from technology to do other things? I think there's like a phrase or some kind of word for that.
Yeah, it's called normal life, I think. I'm not really sure.
Awesome. Now, Jay, we have reached the beta phase. I would ask you rapid fire questions so we can get this episode shipped. Are you ready, Jay?
Yep. Let's go.
Why do you love being a part of the video game industry?
The people and the variety. It's never the same day. Everything's something new every day. And there's always something cool out there. And you can look at it and go, oh my God, that would be so cool if we did this. And, it's like we love what we do because we can sit down at the end of the day and say, look at this game I made and look at these people I know. And it's a huge industry. The projections the other week were like in the billions of dollars, by 2020 or, more billions of dollars by 2020. But at the end of the day, it's like everybody knows everybody. And, when you're working with people that you enjoy working with, doing something that you love doing, I've tried to get out of this industry 3 times. And every single time I've sat back and gone, I would be miserable. I went to one interview and they were like, yeah, so you'll be in a suit and you'll go to the doctor's office. It was like doing pharma sales or something like that. And I was like, God, a suit every day? Like, seriously? That's a thing? I can't even imagine. It's like, no, I knew that, I can't leave this industry. I love this industry. There's just no way.
What was holding you back in the beginning from joining?
Fear of failure. From joining the industry, nothing. Good God, if you told me when I knew I wanted to play, be in video games since I was like 7, that there was nothing holding me back there except for the parents going, there's no way, you can't do that. There's no money in that. And I'm like, okay, I have an English degree. There's no money in that either. So, I don't see the downside really. But, what held me back from, where I am now is the fear of failing. I mean, it's no different than anybody else. I mean, it's not like there was some secret sauce. I was like, oh my God, what if I do this and then I'll lose my house? That was it. And, once I got over that hurdle, it's been better. I'm not saying it's been perfect, but it's been better.
What's funny is that you could have used that English degree for video games as well, for the video game industry.
See, that's the catch. And that's what people always say. No, I have an English literature degree. I still rely on the little red squiggly lines on Word and everything else to tell me when I've completely grammatically destroyed a sentence. A fact that I can read really fast and comprehend is pretty much the only benefit that I got from that one. But, it's that's the other one. Kids, go get a college degree that you want, not necessarily the one that, everybody says you should have.
Oh, yes.
Unless you're going to be a doctor, and then we really would prefer you know something about biology. But, aside from that, get you a degree you want. Or don't go to college and just do what you want, even better.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't build anything you can't walk away from. That sounds odd when you're talking about somebody that runs their own company, doesn't it? But it came from my uncle, and he was, done a lot of entrepreneurial things. And, when I think it was when I first, left and started my first company, he said, look, don't build anything you can't walk away from, and at the time he had just sold his company for like $10 million to somebody. And so the context was, if somebody wants to buy your company, do it, sell it, you can do it again, but over time it's changed that meaning in my head. It's yes, it is. If somebody came in and, wanted to buy the company, then if the price was right, yeah, I'd sell it. I don't know why anyone would want to buy our company, but, it's there. But, you also have to realize that when you're building something, if you build something that ends up making you miserable, which is very possible, you have to be able to, step away. You can't go and say, well, I started this company and, it makes me miserable now and I suck and it sucks and I hate it and I don't like who I work with and I don't like, the companies that I'm with and all this other stuff. You still have to be able to walk away. And so, whether for a good reason or for a bad reason, it was don't build anything you can't walk away from.
Yes, get out of it. Yeah. A specific marketing tip to stand up.
Be yourself. Don't, there's so much variety out there in the world right now. Don't try to be what you think everyone wants you to be. You're going to find much more success, being completely and utterly original and straightforward and yourself, whether that's your game or your consultant pitch or whatever it is, you're going to be much better off.
What resources should we use today, especially to learn more about biz dev?
My Twitch channel. There's a lot of stuff, and it's so one of the changes. Yeah, and I'm going to completely derail the rapid fire part of this for a second. One of the things that I've done this year that I haven't done in years past, and it's still very much a beta phase itself. So ask me about this in January. Is I've stepped away from going to so many conferences. And we get this kind of thing built into our head that we have to go to these conferences and we have to get FaceTime and we have to network and we have to, go to these lectures and things like that. And I read an article, and I cannot remember the guy's name, but he's one of the big San Francisco VC guys, and he's been blogging since blogging was, existent. And he had an article that says stop going to trade shows. And I was like, okay, what? Because we've had trade shows as clients, and I'm like, so what do you mean quit going to trade shows? And he made a compelling point. He said, if you take the time and the money that goes into going to a trade show, and you think about GDC, it is set in one of the most expensive cities on the planet. You're there for a week, if not more. Your hotel is going to run anywhere from like $300 to $500 a night, unless you want something that you might get stabbed, going in and out of. You got your cost to get in the show. You got your food. You got your flight. You got time out of the office. You add all that up. And he said, he stopped going to so many conferences and he started concentrating on blogging and social media and, doing things to get out there and, spread his personal brand. And so that's what I've done this year. I didn't go to GDC. I haven't been to a conference all year. I don't have a single regret. I don't think I missed anything either, because a lot of these shows you can sit down and you can say, you can go online afterwards and they'll have a lot of the lectures. We don't have to worry about FaceTime as much anymore, for better or worse. There is a downside. You do need to get out there and socialize with other real humans. But, I can just as easily pick up the phone and do a Skype video call somebody in Japan or Spain or, Chile or Russia or wherever. And I don't have to fly across the world to do it. It's one of those things that you have to go out and look for. And so, what resources should you use? Your peers. Those are your best resources. I said, a friend of mine sent me an article and he's like, hey, here's some great tips for developers that are dealing with streamers. Because our show today was about on streamers and how indie devs and all that stuff can work with them. And so I started reading it and I was like, this is some of the worst advice ever, and one of the pieces was, and this person had like a whole web page full of these like articles about marketing your game and shipping your game, but nowhere on the website did it say who they were and what they had done, where they kept coming up with this shit, because that's what I was looking for later. But it was like, the best thing you can do to get a streamer to play your game is to make a 1 to 7 minute demo that's playable just for that person. And I'm like, that is horrible advice and so impractical that I don't even know where to start with that. And so you kind of have to like know where your resources are coming from. But, use your peers, people that have gone through this, people that have seen it. We have the ability now to send them a tweet, send them an email, find them on their Discord channel. There's so many ways to network with people now that don't involve getting on an airplane, going to a trade show, getting sick because you're there in a flying petri dish for, a week and, dealing with it when you get home. That's what you're looking for. And so, that's part of the reason that we started our show that focuses on the business side of it. And we've started, curating a lot of these lectures for developers, and saying, you can go to our YouTube page and say, here are, we've got like 20 or 30, and we're adding to this all the time. There's like 20 or 30 videos about indie marketing. And, we got a section for, business and law topics that we're not going out there and finding something that no one knows exists. I mean, we're pulling these from, resources from other trade shows. We're just kind of putting them in one place and making sure that they don't suck when we do it. But, the best resource you can always use is your peers. Talk to people who have been through it. Talk to people who have been in your shoes and, get their feedback.
Yes, don't be afraid to direct message them. Like, game developers are really helpful people, so definitely do that. And now this next question is a bit of a doozy, so take your time if you need to. Imagine you woke up in the next morning in a brand new world and you knew no one. You still have all the experience and knowledge you currently have today. Your food and shelter is taken care of and you have a laptop. What would you do step by step on the path to join and become successful in the game industry?
My food and shelter is already taken care of?
Yep.
Why am I doing anything, Tony?
Enjoying it.
No, it would, if I don't have to worry about food and shelter and, I've got my laptop, I would start reconnecting, start going and doing, get on LinkedIn. That's the easy way to find everybody. But looking at people and finding, opportunities and just trying to work those out and find a way to make those things exist. That's part of what I love doing is we do a lot of work with licenses. And so, when I can sit down and say, oh my God, that game is great. What if we did this with it? And we put, that license, let's get those people on the phone and see if we can get something going. You're in such a wonderful spot if that were to happen, and if you're food and shelter are taken care of, because we all know that that's like so much of that weight on our shoulders. If that's taken care of and I have a laptop and I have access to the internet, it's time to start making some really fun shit. Call the people that, you know and you love and you can have fun working with and make those deals happen and put those games together and, really make those experiences that you can share with other people. And you have fun doing it. So you sit there and you can work for 3 hours a day and enjoy it and have fun and be content in life, the rest of the day.
Yeah, I like the message of this episode. It's just enjoy the work you're doing. So get out there, game devs, find some people and just start making games or make something happen. So awesome. We have reached a goal. Jay, I really appreciate you coming out here helping us out. Tell us how we can connect with you and anything else you want to mention, and then we'll say goodbye. We've got
our website, which is super easy. It's powellgroupconsulting.com. I'm on Twitter at Powell_J, J-A-Y on Twitter. You can find our Twitch show. We do it every Thursday. It's Indie Game Business on Twitch. And then, our YouTube page, which has got all the resources on there. That's got the different lectures and it's got archives of the shows that we've done so far. That's just on the Powell Group on YouTube. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm not hidden. I'm pretty easy to find. Got to me on LinkedIn. For God's sake, put at least a comment in there. Don't send me a blind invite. Those are just the crap out of me. But I also know that it happens all the time because LinkedIn's UI is kind of screwy, and sometimes you do send off that accidental invite. But send me a note on LinkedIn and say, hey, I heard you on Tony's podcast. And I'll be like, hey, how can we help? Because, yeah, man, this is fun. I enjoy doing this. So I'm glad I got a chance to do it. I appreciate the opportunity, Tony.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, I will definitely link up everything. So yes, hit him up. So yeah, like you said, hit him up on LinkedIn and to give him a message. So Jay, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And of course, all the best to your future work. We will catch you next time.
Thanks, Tony. You too, man.
Awesome. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Jay. You can check him out on his website at powellgroupconsulting.com. That is powellgroupconsulting.com. He got a lot of knowledge, and you can tell he's really enthusiastic. So I really appreciate him coming on the show. Remember, we got to do follow-ups in order to get people's attention. And of course, we got to take breaks so we don't feel like we get too overwhelmed. So disengage. For all these show notes, you can go to GameDevLoadout.com/94. That is GameDevLoadout.com/94. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Have a great rest of your day, and peace.